I inherited 20 acres from my grandfather, and the first time somebody tried to tell me what I could do with my own land, I nearly choked on my coffee. Then they pulled up in a Lexus, and I realized this was going to be a story worth telling. Fasten your seatbelt. This one gets stupid and satisfying in equal measure. My name is Jackson Edwards. I'm a software developer who built a cabin on my grandfather's old homestead outside Billings, Montana. I work in pajamas, drink coffee on a porch that looks at mountains, and I thought I liked quiet until quiet turned into a courtroom. The property sits at the end of a quarter-mile gravel driveway that winds through pine and then opens to my place, and my grandfather, bless him, did every bit of paperwork. Right back in 1952, filed deeds and surveys, so neat you could eat off them explicitly, marking that road as private, maintained by the owner. No public easement. Crystal clear on paper, simple in principle. Except people like simplicity until it inconveniences them. For the first 6 months after I moved in, pure bliss. Honestly, birds, mountain light through the window, remote calls with a backdrop of trees instead of fluorescent office lights. Life was quiet and steady, the kind of peace you podcast about when you want to sound profound. Then Pine Vista Estates happened. A developer carved a mile down County Road 47 into cookie-cutter quarter-acre lots and an HOA, and suddenly there were new cars on my private road faces I hadn't seen before, and a new assumption in town: if a route saves you time, it's your right to use it. It hit one Tuesday while I was on a client call. I muted, looked out the window, and there she was. Brenda Kamal, late 40s polo shirt with the HOA logo like it came with her business cards, haircut in the kind of sharp bob that says, "I run things," stepping out of a silver Lexus onto my gravel as if my porch were a public park. "Can I help you?" I asked, because apparently that's what you do. Be polite to strangers who park in your yard. She looked me up and down like she'd discovered a stain on the rug of civilization and announced with all the entitlement of someone used to being obeyed that the road connecting to County Road 47 meant it was part of public access, and the HOA had concerns. I did what any reasonable person would do. I laughed because the idea that a homeowners association could trump 50 years of deeds felt absurd. "This is private property," I said, and produced the words I thought would end at deed surveys, county records, grandfather's name on the line. Brenda's face went from polite to furious. In a blink, she waved the argument away, talked about residents' complaints, 15 minutes saved in the morning commute, how inconvenient life would be if only the world respected property lines. She offered a compromise: the HOA would chip in for maintenance, which in HOA speak is code for "we want access, but we'll bribe you to not shout about it." I tried reasonable, I tried patient. I asked her to tell her members to stop using my road. She smiled like a negotiator who smells weakness and switched tactics, threats, the specter of angry neighbors, and finally a business card that said, "Call me when you're ready to be reasonable." I put the card down, finished my call, and spent the afternoon reading Montana property law. Turns out the law was on my side. Private roads are private permission matters, and a lack of a gate doesn't magically create a public easement. 3 days later, the problem escalated: traffic jams on my driveway, horns, middle-aged men in pricey cars lecturing me about inconvenience, a delivery truck stuck dust in the air, and me standing in it like a man who suddenly realized he'd been too polite for too long. That night, I called Rick, the fencing guy in Billings. "I want a gate that says, in no uncertain terms, respect the line." He built a heavy steel gate, bolted and beautiful, with a sign reading, "Private property, no trespassing, Edwards property." The sort of signage that leaves no room for interpretation. Brenda returned the minute the gate went up, theatrically outraged. "You can't block the road," she insisted, and I showed her the certified copies I'd gotten from the county clerk, and I told her sharply, "You told people to use my land without permission, you told them it was okay, and now you're trying to act surprised when I stop you." She left radar up, and I locked the gate, feeling like I'd closed a good book. But it's funny how closing a gate can open a war. Calls flooded my phone, dozens of angry neighbors' texts, certified letters from the HOA, demanding removal of the gate within 48 hours or legal action, and that's when I called Margaret Chen, a lawyer in Billings, who didn't promise miracles, only competence. She read the deeds, smiled in the way lawyers do when paperwork is in order, and said, "If they sue, we'll get it dismissed. Inconvenience isn't a legal interest." good to know, but also lawsuits take time, patience, and money. They got creative, though. Protests at the gate signs, cars blocking County Road 47, people spray painting jerk on the new gate at night, and then the HOA filed suit absurd claims about public nuisance and economic hardship from a 30-minute detour. Courtroom scenes are strange people dressed extra serious arguing about gravel roads while the judge sifts through history like a historian who majored in common sense. Judge Thornton read the law and said exactly what we expected: private property is private property and easement doesn't arise absent permission. Dismissed. The HOA left sputtering. Brenda took the camera and framed me as the villain, but the court had spoken. And yet the story had a twist that didn't feel cinematic until reality handed it to me. One night the gate was cut, the lock gone, a figure on camera with bolt cutters, a car slipping past, and a license plate that led straight back to a Pine Vista resident named Kevin Walsh. He confessed I was late for work and begged me to drop charges. I listened, weighed compassion against precedent, and made a decision not born of vengeance but of principle. Kevin could avoid prosecution if he paid for damages, signed a statement admitting what he did, and stayed off my property. He agreed, and in a moment of graceless truth, his signed statement said, "Brenda had encouraged residents to resist the gate." Important words I kept. That admission would turn out to be a door to the next act. A fake nonprofit sprouted, the Montana Highway Access Coalition website, fresh as a newborn board members, that suspiciously included Brenda's husband, and legal threats growing like mold. Margaret laughed once she saw it. Pretty clever, pretty desperate. The court dismissed that one fast, and Judge Thornton warned that frivolous litigation could lead to sanctions. A line in the sand was being drawn, and it wasn't just about me anymore. We went on the offensive. I filed a countersuit for harassment costs and emotional damage, and suddenly the dynamic shifted. Brenda came to the gate, small and worn, asking for mercy admission. She'd overstepped, that she'd made mistakes. She begged for a settlement. I felt something odd, a twinge of sympathy. But the ledger of actions was pretty clear. She chose escalation. She lied to neighbors. And eventually she misused HOA funds to pay for legal bills. The county investigated, charges were filed, and Brenda's fall from power was precipitous. She pleaded to a reduced charge, got probation, restitution, community service, and lost her standing in a way no social media pile-on could have engineered alone. The court settlement: we took monetary compensation, a formal apology published to the HOA, and Brenda's resignation felt like validation. But the real catharsis was quieter. The gate stayed, the law held County Road 47. Got some improvements. Delivery drivers stopped being routed through my private road after I updated the map services, and life returned to the slow rhythm Montana does well. If there's a moral here, and I promise I'm not trying to preach, it's this: boundaries matter and convenience doesn't create rights. People in power, even small local power like an HOA president, can convince themselves they're right in service of the greater good, and that rationalization is dangerous. Because goodwill paved with someone else's property is still trespassing. The law stood as a neutral referee, and sometimes neutrality is all you need to turn a messy moral argument into a tidy legal outcome. Standing on my porch that October evening, beer in hand, watching yellow light leak over the pines, I felt grateful for my grandfather, who doted on paperwork, for the deputy who enforced the law when people were angry, for the judge who read the statutes, and yes, even for the gate, which is now less a nuisance and more a lesson in metal and principle. Brenda paid a steep price for stepping over a line she thought she could redraw, and the HOA learned the cost of assuming authority beyond its borders. So here's the part I want you to chew on while you think about your own neighborhood, or that weird rule someone tried to impose on you when a community wants something convenient and an individual says no. Which side do you take, the convenience of the many or the rights of the one? Does the volume of people wanting something ever make it right? Or does law, imperfect as it sometimes is, exist to protect the boundary even when it's unpopular to do so? Tell me in the comments, have you been the person asked to give up something small for someone else's convenience, or the person who stood their ground and got called selfish for it? Share your story. Tell me which side you'd choose, and if you've ever butted heads with an HOA, a neighbor, or even your own family over where a line should be drawn. I want to hear it, because stories like this are how we figure out where we stand.
Cảm ơn các bạn đã xem video.